I thought moving to Willow Grove would be my fairy tale ending. A perfect house, a quiet street, and a chance to finally build the life I'd always dreamed of with Mark. But the moment I stepped into our new neighbor's world, everything I knew about myself shattered. Their charm was magnetic, their world a dazzling escape from the mundane, and in a single reckless moment, I let myself get too close. Now, I'm drowning in a secret so heavy, it threatens to crush everything I hold dear, and I can't help but wonder, will Mark ever look at me the same way if he uncovers the truth I'm hiding behind my forced smiles? Picture this. I'm standing at the edge of my new front yard, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement, and I'm hit with this sudden, unshakable feeling that I've just stepped into a painting. Not a chaotic, abstract mess, but one of those serene, perfectly composed landscapes where every detail feels deliberate. My name's Jill, I'm 29, and after years of scraping by in cramped apartments, I've finally landed here, in Willow Grove. A neighborhood so idyllic it almost feels like a secret I wasn't supposed to discover. Tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, and that quiet hum of suburban peace I've craved since I was a kid. This is my fresh start, my canvas to fill, and I'm determined to make it beautiful. I've been married to Mark for 4 years now. He's a good man, the kind who'd give you the shirt off his back without a second thought. But sometimes I catch myself staring at him, wondering where his spark went. He's 32, broad-shouldered with a quiet smile, but there's a restlessness in him. Or maybe it's a lack of something. Passion, maybe. Drive. He's been drifting for years, bouncing between odd jobs, never quite finding his footing, and I've often found myself steering the ship for both of us. This house, this move, it was my idea, my push. I saved every penny, scoured listings, and fought for this dream while Mark nodded along, supportive but uninvolved. It's not that he doesn't care. It's just that he doesn't seem to dream the way I do. And sometimes, in the quiet moments, that difference feels heavier than I'd like to admit. Moving day was a whirlwind. Boxes everywhere, furniture shoved into corners, and the faint smell of fresh paint still lingering in the air. I was buzzing with excitement, tearing through packing tape, arranging shelves, trying to turn this empty shell into a home. Willow Grove felt like a promise, a place where I could finally plant roots and build something lasting. I kept nudging Mark to come with me, to step outside and breathe in this new chapter, maybe chat with a neighbor or two. But he just shrugged, mumbled something about setting up his old computer rig in the garage, and disappeared behind a stack of cables and dusty monitors. Typical. So there I was, alone in my enthusiasm, itching to connect with this new world around me. From our front window, I couldn't help but notice the house to our right. It's massive, a sprawling 2-story beast with pristine white siding and windows that gleam like they're polished daily. And the cars? Oh, the cars. A sleek black sedan, a sporty convertible, and some kind of luxury SUV, all lined up in the driveway like they're on display. I stood there, hands on my hips, wondering who could possibly live in a place like that. A big, bustling family with kids spilling out onto the lawn. Or maybe a couple of high flyers who've made it big and live like royalty. My curiosity got the better of me, and before I knew it, I was smoothing out my hair, brushing off the dust from unpacking, and heading over to introduce myself. My sneakers crunched on the gravel of our modest driveway as I crossed the invisible line between our worlds, my heart picking up a little with each step. Their house loomed larger the closer I got, a modern marvel of glass walls and a sleek black roof that seemed to drink in the sunlight. The lawn was so perfectly manicured, it could have been ripped from the pages of a glossy magazine. Not a single blade out of place. I counted 6 cars parked in their expansive driveway. A shiny red sports car that screamed speed, a rugged black SUV built for adventure, and a few others that looked equally out of my league. How does anyone afford all this, I wondered, a mix of awe and unease settling in my chest as I compared it to our beat-up sedan parked back home. I reached the front door, my finger hovering over the doorbell for a moment as I second-guessed myself. What if they think I'm nosy? But I shook off the doubt and pressed the button, hearing a deep, resonant chime echo somewhere deep inside the house. My palms felt clammy, and I wiped them on my jeans, suddenly hyper-aware of how underdressed I must look. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably just a few seconds, the door swung open, and I found myself face to face with two men who looked like they'd stepped out of a high-end cologne ad. The taller one, who introduced himself as Adam, had a chiseled jawline that could cut glass, piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through me, and a confident smile that made my stomach do a little flip. He wore a crisp white shirt, the sleeves rolled up just enough to hint at a muscular build beneath. The other, Tyler, was slightly shorter, but no less striking, with dark hair, a rugged beard that framed a charming grin, and an easy, casual vibe in his fitted black tee and jeans. They both carried this air of success and strength, a sharpness that made me think of ambition and late-night strategy sessions. It was such a stark contrast to Mark's slouched posture and faded hoodies that I couldn't help but notice it, though I tried not to dwell on the thought. "Hey there, neighbor," Adam said, his voice smooth and welcoming as he extended a hand. Tyler nodded with a warm, "Good to meet ya," and I managed a smile, introducing myself as Jill from next door. They told me they're longtime friends who share this place and run a successful tech startup together. Their energy was infectious, a kind of drive and purpose that seemed to radiate from them. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of sadness, thinking of Mark's lethargy, the way he seems to coast through life while I'm always pushing forward. But I shoved that feeling down, focusing instead on matching their friendliness. And before I knew it, Adam was gesturing for me to come inside, saying they'd love to chat more over a drink. I hesitated for just a split second, glancing back toward my own house where Mark was probably still lost in his tech setup, oblivious to the world. But the pull of their warmth and the allure of their stunning home was too strong. I stepped over the threshold, my sneakers feeling out of place on the polished marble floor, and followed them into a living room that looked like it belonged in a design catalog. Plush gray sofas, a massive glass coffee table, and floor-to-ceiling windows that framed a view of a backyard oasis. Adam offered me a glass of wine, his fingers brushing the stem as he handed it over with a casual, "Hope you like red." I took it, feeling a small thrill at the simple luxury of sipping a drink in a place like this, the deep, rich flavor rolling over my tongue as I nodded my thanks. Tyler chuckled, sprawling onto the sofa with an easy grin, and said, "You know, we're always working too hard, barely get a chance to kick back with neighbors. This is a treat." His words made me feel special, like I was someone worth their time, and I couldn't help but smile, settling into the cushion across from them. The conversation flowed like the wine, smooth and effortless. They told me about their startup, how they'd turned a late-night idea into a tech empire, shared stories of their travels to places I'd only seen in pictures, and painted a vivid image of how they'd built their dream life from nothing but grit and vision. I found myself hanging on every word, drawn to their confidence, their charisma, the way they seemed to command the room without even trying. It was intoxicating, being near people who radiated such purpose, and I felt a flicker of something I hadn't in a long time, a spark of excitement, of wanting more. Then Adam leaned forward, his blue eyes locking with mine as he mentioned they needed a cleaner for their office downtown. "It's simple stuff," he said, his voice steady and assured. "Organizing files, tidying up after meetings. Nothing crazy. But we pay well, $6,000 a month, because we value discretion and trust above all." I nearly choked on my wine, the number hitting me like a punch. $6,000 a month for something so basic? My mind raced straight to our financial struggles, the bills piling up, the stress that kept me awake at night while Mark seemed to shrug it off. That kind of money could change everything for us, could lift the weight I'd been carrying alone. Before I could even process it fully, the words tumbled out of me. "I'd love the job," I said, my voice a little too eager, a little too desperate. Adam's grin widened, sharp and knowing, as he leaned back and said, "You're hired," just like that. No questions asked. My heart leapt, a rush of relief and gratitude flooding through me. This was a lifeline, a chance to breathe easier, and I couldn't believe how quickly it had fallen into my lap. Overwhelmed, I stood up to thank him, my glass still in hand, and in a clumsy, impulsive moment, I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around Adam in a quick hug. His frame was solid, warm, and he didn't pull away as fast as I expected. His hand lingered on my waist, a subtle pressure that sent an electric jolt through me, my breath catching in my throat. I should have stepped back, should have laughed it off, but before I could, Tyler was there, closer than I realized, his presence a sudden heat at my side. His breath brushed against my neck as he murmured, low and soft, "We're so lucky to have met you, Jill." Then, in a moment that felt like it slowed time itself, his lips grazed my skin, a feather-light touch that made my entire body freeze. My mind screamed at me to stop, to pull away, to remember who I was, and who was waiting for me just across the yard. But my body betrayed me, rooted to the spot, a storm of forbidden want crashing through every sensible thought. As I stumbled back across the yard toward my house, my legs felt like they might give out beneath me. Each step was heavy, unsteady, like I was dragging the weight of what just happened with me. My mind was a chaotic mess, spinning with excuses, half-formed lies, and a raw, gnawing fear that somehow, some way, Mark would see right through me the second I walked through the door. What had I done? How could I have let things spiral so far out of control in just one afternoon? My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless drumbeat of guilt and panic, as I fumbled with the doorknob and pushed my way inside. The familiar sight of our modest living room hit me like a slap. Unpacked boxes still lined the walls, their cardboard edges fraying from being shuffled around too many times. The mismatched furniture, a sagging brown couch we'd inherited from Mark's uncle, and a scratched-up coffee table I'd found at a thrift store, looked so drab, so painfully ordinary compared to the sleek, polished luxury I'd just walked away from. The air felt thick, suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me with every shaky breath I took. And there was Mark, sitting on the couch, his broad frame hunched slightly as he scrolled through his phone, completely oblivious to the storm raging inside me. His faded hoodie and unkempt hair made him look so unassuming, so unaware, and that only twisted the knife deeper in my gut. He glanced up as I shut the door behind me, his quiet smile flickering for a moment. "Hey, how'd it go with the neighbors?" he asked, his tone casual, almost disinterested, like he was just filling the silence with small talk. I forced my lips into a smile, but it felt brittle, like it might crack at any second. My voice came out uneven, a slight tremble I couldn't quite hide as I answered, "It went really well, actually. They offered me a job, cleaning their office downtown. $6,000 a month." I watched his face transform, that rare spark of excitement lighting up his eyes as he sat up straighter. $6,000 a month? Jill, that's incredible. We could really use the money. Wow, that's a game changer. His genuine happiness, the way his whole demeanor lifted, hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt a stab of guilt so sharp it was almost physical, a searing pain that made me want to curl in on myself and disappear. I stood there, rooted to the spot near the door, fidgeting with the sleeve of my shirt, my fingers twisting the fabric as I avoided his gaze. "Yeah, I start next week," I mumbled, nodding as if that could somehow make the words feel less like a lie. And they did feel like a lie, even though the job part was true. Every syllable that left my mouth seemed to carry the weight of what I wasn't saying, the truth I was burying beneath forced smiles and half-truths. For a fleeting, reckless moment, I nearly spilled it all, every forbidden detail of what had happened next door. The words clawed at the back of my throat, desperate to escape, to shatter this fragile normalcy. But the fear of losing him, of seeing that light in his eyes snuff out forever, stopped me cold. I couldn't do it. I couldn't risk everything we'd built, no matter how flawed or strained it sometimes felt. My skin prickled with every passing second, hyper-aware of things I prayed Mark wouldn't notice. There was a faint trace of Adam's cologne clinging to me, a subtle, musky scent that seemed to linger no matter how much I tried to brush it away. And my neck. Oh, my neck. It still tingled where Tyler's lips had brushed against it, a ghost of warmth that made my pulse race all over again, just thinking about it. I kept my head tilted slightly, hoping to hide any telltale flush, terrified that Mark might pick up on something, anything, that didn't belong. What if he asked why I seemed so on edge? What if he caught a whiff of that unfamiliar scent? My mind spun with worst-case scenarios, each one more suffocating. The days after that afternoon next door have been a slow, torturous unraveling of everything I thought I knew about myself. Each morning, I wake up with this heavy, gnawing knot in my stomach, like a stone that won't budge no matter how much I try to ignore it. My mind keeps dragging me back to that moment, replaying every second in vivid, unrelenting detail. The rush of adrenaline, the forbidden heat of a touch I should have never allowed. I hate myself for what I let happen, for crossing a line I can't uncross. But there's this other part of me, this shameful whisper, that keeps reminding me how alive I felt in those fleeting, stolen seconds. It's a sick kind of torment, being torn between guilt and the memory of that thrill. I can't even look toward Adam and Tyler's house anymore. I've started closing the curtains on that side of our home, pulling them shut tight, as if blocking out the view could somehow erase what I did. But it doesn't. It's still there, lurking in every quiet moment, a shadow I can't outrun. Starting the cleaning job at their office downtown only made things worse. The first time I walked in, I was a bundle of nerves, expecting, I don't know, something, some acknowledgement, some sign of what happened between us. But Adam and Tyler were nothing but professional, detached even, as if that afternoon never existed. They greeted me with polite nods, gave me a quick rundown of my tasks, and that was it. No lingering glances, no sly smiles, just business. Part of me was relieved, grateful for the distance, but another part, a darker, angrier part, felt almost insulted. Was I just another fleeting distraction to them? Have they done this before? Pulled someone else into their orbit only to act like it meant nothing? The thought made me feel cheap, disposable, like I'd thrown away a piece of myself for something that didn't even matter to them. I pushed through the day, organizing files and wiping down conference tables, but my mind was elsewhere, churning with questions I didn't want answers to. The real breaking point came a few nights later, when Mark caught me completely off guard. I was in the kitchen, mindlessly stirring a pot of soup, trying to keep my hands busy so my thoughts wouldn't spiral, when he came up behind me with this shy, boyish grin on his face. He held out a small box, nothing fancy, just a plain little thing wrapped in tissue paper. "I got you something," he said, his voice soft, almost hesitant. "To celebrate the extra income from the job. I know it's not much, but..." I opened it to find a simple necklace, a delicate chain with a tiny, heart-shaped pendant. It couldn't have cost more than $20, but the thought behind it, the fact that he'd gone out of his way to do this, hit me like a tidal wave. He stepped closer, his fingers brushing my neck as he fastened it around me, and I felt the tears coming before I could stop them. They spilled over, hot and unstoppable, as I stood there, frozen, overwhelmed by his kindness and the crushing weight of my betrayal. I didn't deserve this. I didn't deserve him. The words were right there, teetering on the edge of my tongue. I wanted to tell him everything, to let it all pour out. The truth about that afternoon, the way I'd let myself get pulled into something I couldn't take back. I wanted to confess and beg for forgiveness, to lay it all bare and face whatever came next. But as I looked into his eyes, saw the quiet pride and love there, I choked on the words. I couldn't do it. The fear of what it would do to him, to us, was too much. What if he walked away? What if I lost the one steady thing in my life because of a stupid, reckless mistake? Instead, I pulled him into a tight hug, burying my face in his shoulder, breathing in the familiar scent of him as I whispered, "Thank you." But in my head, I was making a promise to myself, a desperate, shaky vow that I'd never let. As the weeks roll by, I find myself settling into a fragile kind of normal. A routine that feels like walking on thin ice, waiting for it to crack beneath me. I keep showing up at Adam and Tyler's office downtown, dusting off desks and sorting through paperwork with mechanical precision. Every interaction with them is strictly professional now, clipped and courteous, like we're all playing roles in a carefully rehearsed play. They never mention that afternoon, not even a hint, and I'm grateful for the silence, even if it makes me feel like a ghost haunting their sleek modern space. Each time I catch Adam's sharp blue eyes or Tyler's easy grin, it's a test of my willpower, a silent challenge to keep my composure when my mind threatens to wander back to forbidden territory. I force myself to focus on the tasks, on the steady paycheck that's keeping us afloat, but there's always this undercurrent of tension, a whisper in the back of my mind that I can't quite silence. At home, I pour every ounce of energy into Mark, trying to rebuild something I'm not sure I deserve. I start cooking his favorite meals, slow-roasted pot roast with carrots, the kind his mom used to make, and cheesy lasagna that fills the house with warmth. I plan little date nights in our living room, dimming the lights, putting on old movies we used to watch when we first met, and curling up under a worn blanket with cheap wine in mismatched glasses. He notices, of course. He smiles more, his quiet laugh filling the spaces between us as he comments on how the new job has given us breathing room, how we're finally getting ahead with the bills. "You've been amazing, Jill," he says one night, his hand resting on mine, and I force a smile, nodding as if I agree. But inside, I'm crumbling under the weight of what that money really cost me. Every kind word from him is a dagger, a reminder of the secret I'm carrying, the betrayal I've buried beneath these acts of love. I wonder if he can sense the strain behind my laughter, the way my eyes dart away when he looks at me too long. I'm trying to drown my guilt in these moments, but it's like trying to outrun a shadow. It's always there, stretching longer with every step. In the quiet hours, when the house is still and Mark is asleep beside me, I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with questions I don't have answers for. Will I ever forgive myself for what I did? Have I broken something inside me? Something fundamental that can't be repaired? I keep telling myself it was a mistake, a momentary lapse, but there's a part of me, a dangerous, reckless part, that still lingers on the memory of that day. Not just with shame, but with a curiosity that terrifies me. It's like a splinter under my skin, a nagging thought I can't pull out. What if I'm not as strong as I think I am? What if I'm capable of crossing that line again, of letting myself be drawn into that kind of temptation one more time? I hate that I even have to ask myself these things, that I can't trust my own heart anymore. I want to believe this was a one-time fall, a stumble I can leave in the past. But the doubt gnaws at me, whispering in the dark that maybe I've changed in ways I can't undo. I think about the bigger picture, the life I'm trying to build here in Willow Grove, the dream I fought so hard for. This neighborhood, with its perfect lawns and quiet streets, was supposed to be my sanctuary, a place to start over with Mark and make something beautiful. But now, every time I step outside, I feel the weight of invisible eyes, the looming presence of the house next door, even with the curtains drawn tight. I wonder if I've tainted this fresh start, if I've dragged a stain into our new home that no amount of effort can wash out. Mark deserves better than this. Better than a wife who's haunted by her own choices, who's torn between the man she loves and the shadow of a moment she can't forget. I keep asking myself if I can. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.